Okay, good evening, everyone. A lot of late arrivals tonight, but as I always say, better late than never. We learn, sponsored by A.B. Spry and family, for the safety of our troops and of Klal Yisrael throughout the globe, the recovery of the hostages, by Shimon Klein, and special tonight, Rabbi Isai, it's his father's Yosai, Asher Anshel ben Yehuda, and Gittel Bas Shimon Pinchas, Irving Fishbaum, Lefur Shalema for Issa ben Rezel, and Eliezer ben Rezel for Meir ben Chayes Sarah. Here in Shul, we have the pleasure of having Reb Aaron Blumenfeld, Reb Avram, Reb Kramer, Reb Chol Avram, Reuven Shannon, Saba, Gedalia Engel. Yes, Barish. We welcome in over here Rich Lenerich. We miss you over here. Your seat is crying, but better over there than nowhere.
I'm in Edison.
You're in Edison. You stay overnight tonight?
Right, yeah.
It's a pickup night. Pickup night.
Am I next to Marshall by any chance?
Marshall is coming in right now.
Oh, okay.
Coming in right now. Let's see if you get unlucky. Sandy Grunfeld is joining us. Anyway, we have Menachem Yemansky, Yitzi Muller, Baruch Ian, Irving Fishbaum, Mel Zachter, Shalom Fogel, Mo Kushner. Mo, we hope you're feeling better. Eddie Chazan, Shimon Klein, Berish Gesseman, Nachman Chapler, Charcoal Castle, Stephen Holtzman, Moshe Lehman, Yeshua Shmuel Eisenberg, Aaron Swade. Aaron, we hope you feel better as well. Just keep your distance from Marshall. You should get better in no time. Ilya Shutman, Naftali Javin, thank God. Abe Arbach, Yitzi Fuchs, Rabbi Kranz, and we welcome in Sandy Grunfeld. We'll learn for the yahrzeit of Yitzchak Leib ben Meir Zev. Neshama should have an aliyah, should be a meltz yosher for his family, for all of us and all of Klal Yisrael. And David Helfgott, who's joining us via Kol Alashin. Tonight, by the way, Rabbi, it's a big night, as we're going to learn after this a very special Chumash here, if I might say so myself, followed by the Mishnah Yomi, so starting the 9th parak of Ksubas. So a very, very exciting night. I know Rich is, in his chair and ready to go. Sometimes he has to travel to Edison to stay for the whole share. There's a story about the person, the yeshiva boy, that whenever he was in yeshiva, he looked forward to going home. And whenever he was home, he looked forward to going to yeshiva. And they couldn't understand what it was. And finally, they chapped that he enjoyed the bus ride. Rich likes the ride to Edison, from Edison to Fairways.
I just like booting up my computer. That's why I'm here.
We understood that. We understood that's why you always have the Gemara upside down. Okay, so if you remember, Rabbi Isai, and I will tell you as good news that tonight's Gemara is much less intensive. It's much less intensive. The last two nights was pretty intense. It was pretty intense. Yeah, you could listen with one part of your brain tied behind your back. Not that part. Anyway, so we said that v'hachia b'kinyan peris k'kinyan aguf dami kamiflagi. That's a shas question, and that is if somebody just has the right of usufruct, the right to use the peris, does that make him to be like a main owner? And the Gemara says, "B'plukta dahani tanoi." And if you're wondering where we're up to, we're 6 lines from the top of Daf Tzadi Amid Aleph. Tzadi is a very nice daf. Tzadi is a righteous person. Also reminds us that we're supposed to hear 90 Ameins a day, and that's what it says. The acronym of Tzadik is 90 Ameins, Dalet Kedushas, Yud Amen Yehish Mei Rabbis, and Kuf Brachas. That makes a tzaddik. 90 Ameins that we hear and we answer. The Dalet Kedushas, the 10 Amen Yehish Mei Rabbis, and the 100 Brachas. So, anyway.
For Franks and bourbon.
Right, same bracha. Says the Gemara. Now, before we learn this, I should give you a preface that there's a halacha. The halacha is as follows. Normally, if a person gives a murderous blow, as long as the person dies from that murderous blow, and there were witnesses and the proper warning, the assailant is put to death. An exception is when an owner gives a blow to his Eved Kanani, to his Canaanite slave. If he's out and about a day or two, and then he dies, the owner is not put to death. Now this leniency is only for the owner and not for anybody else. Oh, so now let's see. The Tanya Hamoicher Avdoi La'acher. If let's say Chatzkel sells his Eved Kanani to Shmuel. Chatzkel sells his Eved Kanani to Shmuel, but Chatzkel stipulates, because the next 30 days he's going to be very busy, or Pasakimai, Chatzkel stipulates with Shmuel, Al Menashi Yisham Shenu Shloishim Yoim, that he's still going to use the Eved Kanani, we'll call him Nick. He's still going to use Nick for the next 30 days. So that means that for the next 30 days, Chatzkel has a Kinyan Paris on Nick, right? Because he gets to use him for 30 days. So says the Gemara now, Rameir Aimer Rishain Yeshnu Bedin Yoima Yamayim. Chatzkel, if in those 30 days he gives him Nick a murderous blow, but Nick walks around for a day or two, he gets the leniency that he's not put to death. Because during those 30 days, Chatzkel gets to use Nick. And even though he already sold him to Shmuel, but Kasavar Kinyan Paris Kinyan Aguftami, he holds that the right of use for these 30 days is considered like he's a core owner, and therefore he gets the exemption. Rabbi Yehuda says if during those 30 days Shmuel gives Nick a murderous blow, Sheni Yeshna B'din Yoima Yomayim. Why? Mipnei Shu Kaspai, because he bought Nick, so he's the owner, so he gets the leniency. Chatzkel gets to use him for those 30 days. He holds Kasav Kinyan Paris Lavka Kinyan Aguftami. The fact that he has right of usufruct doesn't make him a core owner. Rabbi Yaisi says, Shneyem yeshnu b'din yoima yamayim. They both get the leniency. If during those 30 days, Chatzkel gives Nick a murderous blow and he walks around for a day or two, or Shmuel does it, they both get the leniency because they both have aspects of an owner. Zeh mipnei shu tachtav. Chatzkel because he gets to use him for 30 days, and Shmuel because he bought him. Now, what does Rabbi Yaisi hold? Rabbi Yaisi is not sure. Misafkale, he's doubtful whether Kinyan Paris, Kinyan Aguftami, Ilavka Kinyan Aguftami. Whether the fact that Chatzkel has the right of usufruct for 30 days, does that make him a primary owner or not? Oh, we're not sure. if we're not sure, we're not going to put them to death. In other words, if he's not an owner, then he's put to death if Nick dies. If he is a loaner, he gets the leniency because he walked around for a day or two. Since we're not sure, we don't execute people in a case of doubt. If we have a doubt, we don't give execution. Rebbe Eliezer, we kill them both. If Chatzkel gives him a murderous blow, even though he walks around 1 or 2 days, we execute Chatzkel. If Shmuel gives him a murderous blow, even though he walks around 1 or 2 days, we execute Shmuel. Why? Both don't have the leniency if they walk around 1 or 2 days. Shmuel doesn't get the leniency because during those 30 days, he doesn't have the right to use Nick. Nick is by Chatzkel. And Chatzkel doesn't get it because even though he has the right to use it, it's not his. I'm a Rava, my time in the Rebbe Eliezer. What's the reason of Rebbe Eliezer? Because the pasuk, when it says the leniency, if he gets up and walks around 1 or 2 days, we don't execute the owner because the pasuk says ki kaspoihu, because he is his money, and we darshan kaspoi hamiyuchad loy, money that's designated exclusively to him. And to neither one of them do they have exclusive rights. Chatzkel doesn't have exclusive rights because Nick is owned by Shmuel. Shmuel doesn't have exclusive rights because the first 30 days he can't use it, Chatzkel uses it. So both of them don't have the leniency because it's not kaspoy hamayuchad loy. Says the Gemara, Kaman Ozla. You know, we're only on for 12 minutes, and that's not counting all the introductions, and we're already almost 2/3 down the Amid. So, as you could see, it's not as hard as the last few days. The last few days, there were rivers of sweat running through the shul over here. Says the Gemara, Keman Ozla Hod Amar Amemer, according to who does it go? That which Amemer says, Ish ve'isha shemachru b'nichsei maluk. If the husband sells his wife's nichsei maluk. Now remember, nichsei maluk is the property that the wife brings in, which she has ownership of, because that means if it goes up in value, she gets the profit. If it goes down in value, she suffers the loss. On the other hand, the husband has the right miluk to pluck the fruit while they're married. Whether the husband or the wife sells the nichsei maluk, lo yasav lo klum. Says the Gemara, Kaman, who is it going? Like Rebbe Eliezer. It's going like Rebbe Eliezer because Rebbe Eliezer says that it has to be, in order to sell it, it has to be kesef hamayuchad loy. So here also, if you want to be able to, Rebbe Eliezer says, in order to get the leniency, it has to be kesef hamayuchad loy. It has to be exclusively yours. Here also, in order to be able to sell it, it has to be exclusively yours. And it's to neither of them is it exclusively theirs. It's not the wife's because the husband has the right to use it. It's not the husband's because if it goes up in value, the profits go to the wife. Now, man tana lahad tana rabbanan. Who's the author of that which the rabbi said? If somebody is half Eved Kanani, half free man, in other words, he's Tony/Matisyo. Now, why is he Tony/Matisyo? Because Marshall and I owned him, and I freed my half. So my half is Matisyo, and Marshall's half is still Tony. So, V'chein eved shel shnei shutfin. Or if, let's say, Marshall and I shear Nick, Ein yoitzim b'rashi eivarim she'ein on chayzim. Nick doesn't go free if one of us slugs him. Now, in the case of where Marshall didn't free his part, he doesn't go free if Marshall slugs him. If we both own him, he doesn't go free if either of us knocks out his eye and tooth. So Gemara says, why is that? Amalei Rav Mordechai Rav Ashi, Hachi Imrei, Mishmei de Rava, Rebbe Eliezer he. It's Rebbe Eliezer. Milo Yama Rebbe Eliezer Kaspai Hama Yuchid Lai, that the din of Yomi Yomayim only applies if it's exclusively your Eved. Hachanami, the din of knocking out Shein V'ayin is only Avdo Yami Yuchid Lai if it's exclusively your Eved. In the case where he's Matisyo / Mordechai, so it's not exclusively Marshall's because half of him is a free man. In the case where I owe part and Marshall owes part, it's not exclusively Marshall's because I own half of it. So, or Marshall owns half of it. So if I knock out an eye or a tooth, or Marshall knocks out an eye or a tooth, he doesn't go free. The only time he'll go free is if it's Avdai Amayuchid Lai. Starting now a new Mishnah on the bottom of Tzadik Amid Aleph, and we...
Can I ask a quick question on that?
Yes. Time's up. Yes.
If you freed him and Marshall did not, and then Marshall knocked out his tooth and knocked out his eye, because he's the only one who owes the slave part, does he go free?
No. Because it's not Avdai Hamiyuchid Lai. Half of him is owned by himself.
Okay.
Right? It has to be Avdai Hamiyuchid Lai. He owns the whole Eved. Now, you understand that if half of him is free and half of him is owned with Marshall, and you Marshall knocks out his tooth and his eye, he's going to have to pay half damages to the Eved, because half of him is a free man. So he's going to have to pay half damages, but that's okay. Marshall owes money all around town. Actually, it's not all around town, it's all around the globe. That's why every week he comes from a different place. He's on the run, like Eddie. The
rabbi's the collector.
I'm not doing a good enough job.
Collect me some more Zoomers.
Now, says the Mishnah, Tekeya l'chaveira. Now, there's different pshatim in Tekeya. One is that he sacks him in the air. That's Rashi's pshat from his Rebbe. He ko al oznai loshen moiri. There are those that say that when he says moiri, my master, he's referring to Rabbeinu Gershon Ma'ora Goyla. But it's one of Rashi's Rebbeim, says that Atokeya means that Marshall sacked him in the air. There's another pshat, Tokeya Mamish, that he blew into his ear. He took a shofar, scared the life out of the guy. What do you think when we came on? Rich asks, am I sitting near Marshall? He knew what he was doing.
At least it was only a shofar I blew in the guy's ear.
So noisin loisella. He has to pay a seller. Now this, as Rashi explains, this is only giving the amounts for humiliation. This is besides damages. If he socked him in the ear and he caused him damage, and there's medical and there's pain, he has to pay for all of that. This is just giving us the amount for humiliation. He has to pay a seller for humiliation. Rabbi Yehuda, Mishum Rabbi Yosef Glili, much more, a full mana. Satrai, if he slapped him, noisin le Messiah zuz. He he has to pay him 200 zuz. If he did it la'achar yadai, with the back of his hand, with the back of his hand is more humiliating, then noisin la'arba me'ah zuz. He has to pay 400 zuz. Soram ba'oznoi, if he pulled out his ear, gave him a yank by the ear, Tolish Bisara, he pulled out some of his hair. Rokak, if he spat at him. Vigir by Rek and Roikai, and the spit reached his face, his skin. Hevet Talisa Mimeno, he pulled off his cloak and he's standing there in his gachkas. Para Roisha Isha Bishuk, or he covers a woman's head in the marketplace, pulling off her shaitel. Noisin Le'arba Me'ah zuz, he has to pay 400 zuz. Now, Zak Klal Hakol Lefi Kvaydai. This principle is all is according to his honor. So the Gemara is going to say, what does that mean? Does that mean the Mishnah is telling us the minimum? And if he's a more aristocratic person, then it's more than that? Or does the Mishnah say this is the maximum? And if he's a lowly person, it's less? So the Gemara will talk about that. Rabbi Kiva says no. It's not fluctuating. It's a blanket rule because we're all Mamlechas Kahanim v'Gai Kaddish. We're all Chashiv. We're all children of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Rabbi Kiva, Afilu Aniyim Shebi Yisrael, even a poor man, right? I say Kilu B'nei Chayrin. We view him like he's an aristocrat. Sheyardu Mechseyim, that just lost his money. Shem B'nei Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. We're all children of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. We're all Mamlechas Kahanim v'Gai Kaddish. Now here, somebody wanted to argue with Rabbi Akiva and say, look, don't tell me she has dignity. He set a trap and showed that when somebody left some oil, she pulled off her shaitel in the public and she started shampooing her hair. So he says it can't be that if I take off her shaitel, I have to pay 400 zuz. She does it just to take a little oil. And the Gemara says, there was an incident with somebody who uncovered a woman, pulled off her shaitel. She came before Rabbi Kiva, and he required him to pay 400 zuz. So the man said, Rebbe, she doesn't have that much shame. He says, Tain li zman, give me time and I'll prove it to you. So v'nasa lo zman. So Rabbi Kiva gave him time. Shamra imedes al pesach hatzeir. He waited while she was standing by the door of her courtyard, out in the open. V'shiber es akad b'foneh, and he made it look like he accidentally broke a jug of oil. And there was a small amount, an isser of oil. Gil says, Raisha, she pulled off her shaitel, and she grabbed the oil and she was shampooing her head. He had witnesses standing there, Rabbi Kiva, and came before Rabbi Kiva. See, she doesn't have that shame. To this one I have to give 400 zuz. That's no argument. Just because somebody is willing to damage themselves doesn't give you the right to damage them. Like the Mishnah says. If somebody wounds themselves, even though you're not allowed to hurt yourself, but potter. If somebody hits you, the person that wounded himself, chayavim. So just because he didn't care about himself and he hit himself, let's say he's a cutter, so the Rahman al-Litzlan, so he cut himself. That doesn't give you the right to cut him. And chayavim, similarly, if somebody cut down his own saplings, so afal pi she'ena rashai, even though you're not allowed to do that, it's about tashchis, like tashchis eitz, but potter. But if somebody else cuts down his sapling, here too, even though this woman causes herself humiliation, that doesn't give you the right to humiliate her. Now, When it says in the Mishnah, a mana, there's two types of manas. There's mana tsuri, and there's the provincial mana. What's called mana Medina. Now, the mana tsuri was 8 times more than the mana Medina. The provincial mana, had 7 parts copper and 1 part silver. It was an alloy. The mana tsuri was pure silver. So the mana Medina was much less than the mana tsuri. So the question is, when it says here you have to pay a mana, what kind of mana is it talking about? As we have the pleasure of welcoming in Abe Arbach for our 27th Zoomer of the evening. Boy, I really feel bad. Mark Frankel is missing out the 3rd week. He's really, every week he keeps on telling me, Rabbi Weiss, I'm going to be back, and then he ends up being in the night shift. He's doing, by the way, he's working in the night and in the day. He comes home he goes back in at 1 in the morning and comes home about 6:30 in the night, collapses, and then goes out again because he really is burning the candle but that's what happens when you have your own business. But anyway, he's one of the sponsors of tonight's. This week we have 3 sponsors for the Chumash here. He's one of the sponsors of the Chumash here tonight. We miss you, Mark. I know he listens to the share with his schedule. He's up to date. But he told me he misses everybody. Says the Gemara, Marshall even misses you. You know,
No way.
Yeah, no, really. In his sleep-induced haze, he even misses you. Now, Ibaylahu, mana tsuri tanan or mana Medina tanan? Are we talking about a mana tsuri, which has 7 more parts silver, or are we talking about the provincial mana? Tajma. Dahu Gavra, the Tokale the Chavre, Marshall, whenever it says Hahu Gavra, that guy, it's talking about Marshall. Dahu Gavra, the Tokale the Chavre, he sacked Eddie in the air. Also, the coming to Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya. So Eddie came to Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya. Amalei, so Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya said a cryptic statement. Ha ana, there is I, and ha Rabbi Yossi Aglili, and there's Rabbi Yossi Aglili, so havle manatsuri. So pay through the nose. For the ear, pay through the nose. Pay with manatsuri, with the Tyrian mana, that's pure silver. Shmami na manatsuri tanan. So you see, it's talking about the more expensive mana of the Tyrian variety, that's pure silver. Shmami na. Now, what did he mean by saying there is I and there is Rabbi Yossi? My ha'ana ha Rabbi Yossi. There is I and there is Rabbi Yossi Aglili. What does that mean? Ilay mahachi kamalei ha'ana de chazitach. Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya said, look, I saw Marshall sack Eddie, and v'ha Rabbi Yossi Aglili who says Dama Manitsuri. Therefore, Marshal Zilhovle Manatsuri. Therefore, give him a Tyrian mana. So that means that we're saying that Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya could witness it, and he could also adjudicate. That means that an aid could be a dayan. A witness could be a dayan. So the memra the aid nasa dayan. You mean that a witness could serve at the same time as a judge? But Tanya, we linked to the Brisa, Sanhedrin Shiro Echad Sharagas and Nefesh. If the Sanhedrin, of 70 people, saw a person kill someone, Miksasa Nasa Eidim, some of them serve as the witnesses, and Miksasa Nasa Dayanim, and some of them serve as the judges. Divrei Tarfin. Rabbi Akiva Aimer, Rabbi Kiva says, Kulam Eidim Hain, they're all witnesses, Ve'ein Eid Nasadayin, and a witness can't be a judge. Now, Ad Kan loy come Reb Tar Finel the Miksas and Nasa Eidim Miksas and Nasa Dayanim. They break up. Some of them are witnesses and some of them are Dayanim. Aval Eid Nasadayin, but nobody says that a witness could serve simultaneously as the Dayan. Aval Eid Nasadayin loy come. So how could Rabbi Yehuda Nasi say over here, I saw it, and therefore, since I'm ruling like Rabbi Yossi Aglili, pay him a mana of Tyrian variety, how could he be a witness and a judge? Says the Gemara, Ki Tanyahi Ki Gan Shiro B'Layla. It's talking about where Rebbe saw the incident in the night. The Loyla Mevad Dinanin, since it wasn't at a time where you could judge, so therefore the next day he could be a judge. In other words, where do we say that you can't do it? That's where you see, where do we say that Ein Eid Nasadayan? That's where the incident happened in the night, so that he cannot rule on the spot. Because otherwise we say, Ein Shmiya Daimalaria. It's not the same listening as witnessing it. And of course, witnessing it is even better than hearing it from witnesses. So if at the moment that they see it, the judge could adjudicate, then even everybody holds that Eid Nasadayin. Where do we say Eid Nasadayin? That's if at the moment where they saw it, it was in the night, where you can't litigate. So therefore, the next day, he cannot be an aid, because Ein Eid Nasadayin. But if they could paskin at the time when it happens, that everybody holds you could do. The Ibai is saying, but that's not what Rebbe meant. When Rebbe said that Ha'anah, Ha'Reb Yossi Aglili, he didn't mean that I'm paskin. The Ibai is saying, Mahachi Karmalei. Ha'anah the Sphira like Reb Yossi Aglili. I hold like Reb Yossi Aglili, the Amamoritz Monatsuri, and there are other witnesses that saw a marshal sack Eddie in the air. So therefore, Zil Havle Monatsuri. And it's not a case of an Eid Nasadayan at all. So the Gemara says, you know what? Once you brought up this subject, the Sava Rabbi Akiva, the Ein Eid Nasadayan? Wait a second. But Tanya, we learned in the Brisa, if two people fight, Marshall and Eddie, V'hika ish esrei eyu be'even oy be'egrayv, and Marshall hits Eddie with a stone or a fist. Shimon atimni aimer ma egrayv miyuchid shemasa la'edav la'edim. Just like the fist is something that can be witnessed by both the witnesses and the courtroom. Eda means the judges, because they see the assailant, they see his fist. Af kol shemasa le'edav le'edim. The only time that we could testify against Marshall is only if we have the murder weapon. It's only if it could be given over to the court to see the murder weapon, to determine that could have given the murderous blow. Prat l'shiyotza mitachas yada edim. That excludes that if the murder weapon is lost by the witnesses, they can't testify. So the Gemara says, I don't understand. The judges don't see everything. If he says that that Marshall pushed him off the cliff, are we going to bring the cliff to the courtroom? Are we going to mandate that the judges have to go to the cliff? Obviously not. So since when do the judges have to see the murder weapon? It's enough that the witnesses testify that it was a weapon that could murder. It was an ice pick. Come on. Look at him. Look at him. Look at that look in his face. I mean, what did you play Clue when you were a kid? No? It's too brainy of a game. Okay. G.I. Joe's, I know. I know. I know. Rummy was too hard for you. Says the Gemara.
Good, I ruled the world.
Yeah? Okay. Amalei Rabbi Akiva, the chi b'fnei Bezdin hiko. Did he hit him in front of Bezdin? She yoidin kama hiko. How many times he hit him? V'almo hiko, and what part of the body he hit him? Imal shuk. Shoike, was it only on his thigh, or tzipa nafshe, or was it by the cartilage of the heart? Void harishidachav is kavera miroi shagag. If Marshall pushed somebody off the roof, or miroi shabira, or from the top of a tower, or mace. So do we necessitate Bezdin to go and see the tower? Bezdin holchaneitz abira, or bira hilachaseitz Bezdin, we bring the tower to the courtroom? Void im nafla, if the tower collapsed, do we rebuild it for Bezdin? Chayzer abayna? Therefore, just like we trust the Adam when they say that it was a blow in a place where it could kill him, and it was a tower high enough that he could die, we trust him even if only they saw the murder weapon. Ella, what's the comparison between the weapon and a fist? Ella mo egraif miyuchid shu masala Adam. Just like the fist, the witnesses had to view. Af koshu masala Adam. The witnesses had to see the murder weapon to know if it was able to kill. Pratli kishiyotze ever metachas yodoy shel maka. This excludes where the rack was lost, so that they weren't able to observe if he could have done it or not. So potter. Now, Tani Mias, Amalei Rabbi Kiva, v'chi b'fnei Bezdin hiko. Did he hit him in front of Bezdin? That implies sheyoidim kama hiko, that they know how many times he hit him. That implies that if he hit him before Bezdin, they would be able to testify. Hoi ko b'fneim eid nasadayin. So the Gemara says, you're right. Rabbi Akiva himself holds eid nasadayin. The Dvar of the Reb Shimon HaTimni Kamer. He's just explaining, the other way around. Rabbi Akiva holds that aid does not nasadayin. That which he's saying over here, that aid is nasadayin, that's the Dvar of the Reb Shimon HaTimni Kamer. However, v'lei lo yisviralei, he doesn't hold that way. Okay, we're going to stop here now, Rabbi Isai. We're going to do the Chumash here first.